We are rolling.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Creative Businessmen. Today we have Jason Ledford in the studio with us. He's a filmmaker, a musician, and an all-around creator of cool things. We had a great conversation with Jason. This is actually a two-part episode as well, so this will be part one. We learned a lot about what inspired Jason to become who he is today and what led him to music and film or filmmaking. And we also discuss some of the business of his art and just business in general, among other things. I'm sure we go into some existential ideas too, like we always do. But I think you guys enjoyed the episode. I know we did. Also, if you enjoy the show, be sure to like and subscribe. We really appreciate the support. And here you go.
So you were in town hanging with Jesse doing the podcast thing?
Yeah. I came in. We were having a meeting with for our next projects and talking about where Giggles was at, and we wanted to get started on some of that and then do our podcast.
What did you do on Giggles again? What was your?
I was executive producer and Gaffer.
Awesome.
And pretty much was like while we were doing the set, while we were filming on production, I was also kind of acting as UPM as well.
Okay.
Yeah, in concert with our first AD.
You say UPM, what is that?
A unit production manager.
Unit production manager.
Yeah, so I was kind of like, I was unit production manager, but also gaffing and lighting. So
I'm just learning all of these terms now. What are the responsibilities of a unit producing
unit
manager?
Production manager.
And then a gaffer as well.
The responsibilities for unit production manager, basically once the production is running, you're kind of help as the liaison between the first AD and the crew a little bit.
Okay.
And now traditionally it's a separate position, you know, I was forced to have to kind of assume it because I was fundamentally instrumental in the pre-production of Giggles, so I kind of knew what everything was going on. And so a lot of times, I would get in and we would run it, and then once I got deep into my job as the gaffer, then Thorne Clater, who was our first AD, he would step in and he would assume the unit production manager duties as well, and then Beth Compton, who was our location manager, also did a lot of helping. So a lot of people worked on it, and what I basically was there, and I helped break the budget down. I built the strip board and helped Jason schedule.
Oh, cool.
Do a lot of the scheduling and stuff like that, pre-production.
Where are you originally from, man?
I'm originally from Cherokee, North Carolina.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay, so are you Native American?
Yes.
I can see it now, yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. So, I was born in Cherokee, and we moved all over the place. And
so, I mean, you're one of the few people who can actually say that, and it's truthful. Everybody else says it, and they just say it because someone told them.
Yeah, my whole family on both sides say there's Native American, and I have no idea if that's true.
I was always told that stuff too.
Yeah,
I think everybody.
Yeah.
It's like everybody has Cherokee in their family.
Yeah.
But I had my genome sequenced, and there's no Native American at all.
None whatsoever.
It's mostly Western European.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, and I think there's some from my grandmother's side, the Ross side. I thought we had some Scotch Irish in us. Yeah. But then she was telling there's German also.
Yeah. Well, North Carolina has a lot of German ancestry. Yeah, that's mostly where my family.
Yeah, because most of the time you always hear somebody that are like, my great grandmother was a Cherokee princess,
Right. Yeah. Some crazy nonsense.
Yeah. And we were like, well, we didn't have princesses. How does that work?
Yeah. Right.
How present is the culture in your family? Is it still? Are you guys, as far as is you identify mostly as Native American? I mean, still.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of traditions and stuff in your family.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
Well, yes, yeah. We in my family, my direct family, which is me, my wife, and my son. Yes, I keep it alive. I was raised knowing I was Cherokee from the time I was little. So even we lived all over the place, but that was my identity.
Right.
I grew up as a Cherokee, and but in my family, yes, my mom lives on the reservation. My aunts, my uncles, they all live on the reservation.
Wow.
One of my cousins, Amber Ledford, can speak the language fluently.
Really?
And so they're starting working, revitalizing, keeping the language alive.
That's
and
very cool.
Now, the way I was raised, I didn't get a lot of the language, but I know some words, and some phrases and stuff, and that's something I hope to learn.
Yeah. Now, the Cherokee are from North Carolina, right? Originally, this region?
Yeah.
And now there's a lot of Cherokee migrated out west during, the Trail of Tears, right?
Yeah, a lot of them went to Oklahoma, to the territories in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So the Eastern Band is basically the descendants from the ones who stayed and hid in the caves,
right,
and everything. And so there, for the longest time, there's a separation between the two tribes, Western Band and the Eastern Band.
Yeah.
But there's a huge history of Cherokee in South Carolina and that whole area. We were considered one of the largest tribes there before the removal in that whole area. And the history says that we came from the Iroquois Confederacy and migrated down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thousands of years ago, but inhabited,
a friend of mine's dad, he's an archaeologist, and he's done a lot of work with the Cherokee over the years. I used to love when I was a kid and going to his house. Yeah, it's like a museum, all the artifacts and stuff. But he was really he's invested a lot of his life into studying the Cherokee culture and history. Yeah, do the Cherokee have do you guys have a written history, or how far back does your history go as far as recorded information?
Well, the oral tradition, they have the Moonies. Mooney's Cherokee History, Myths, and Formulas book.
Right.
And so in that book, that's part of the written that says that we were in the Iroquois and, sort of the Ohio-ish Kentucky area there for a long time.
Oh, wow.
And said, so from that oral tradition, they say that we moved, that's when about 10,000 years ago, we moved down to the Smoky Mountains. And so it wasn't until the Europeans came in that we did, started writing the things down, because it was just an oral tradition, oral history from that time. So
okay, I know recently, fairly recently, they've discovered footprints. I think it's in the U.S. I know it's in the Americas that are 20,000 years old.
I think I saw a report about that.
Yeah, it's about 10,000 years older than they thought originally.
Yeah.
8 to 10.
Yeah, and that's all neat stuff. We went out to Denver and took my son Xander out there, and we went to Dinosaur Ridge, and being able to see, the prints and how they find those,
It's amazing.
Yeah, and then to know that somebody was walking here a long, long time ago, because I don't want to get into conspiracy theories or anything, but I don't buy the Bering Strait Bridge either. I think people came from all over the world, and there's been archaeological digs that state, that civilizations. The
DNA, the DNA history is pretty accurate, and it all leads back to Africa.
Right.
What is interesting though is that what's now the Sahara Desert used to be lush jungle, and it's been that many times. It's actually as recent as 5,000 or 6,000 years ago was lush. In northern Africa was lush jungle. But I mean, there's a pretty strong consensus of all the DNA records that we all originated out of Africa, but there were definitely different types of humans that migrated out. But all Homo sapiens, we all have the same lineage, same origin. Now, it's interesting. Homo sapiens in Africa today don't have if the people that have never left Africa, they don't have. There's no traces of Neanderthal DNA or any other DNA like that. But I believe the original migration from Africa was they believe was around maybe 2 million years ago. It was Homo erectus, and then those people evolved into Neanderthal and maybe a couple other species of hominids, and then about 70,000 years ago, modern day humans migrated from Africa. And then I think there was also a period where most of humanity was killed, almost went extinct. I think our population was as low as maybe they think 7,000 or something.
Wow.
That's why today we all have such everybody in the world has very similar DNA today.
Yeah.
Because we were almost wiped out at one time, and then all the other species are gone.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I would like to look into more of that. So
it's interesting. So, I think a lot of Native American or all Native American people have a lot of DNA from like South Asia, maybe, or India, that area.
That would make a little sense.
Yeah.
Because you can, you see it. It's like my uncle. I love it. He loves to grow the mustache, but it's like,
Oh yeah. Very like the Asian style.
Yeah.
I think if 20,000 years ago is an incredibly long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can't even comprehend.
Yeah.
I mean, human beings have been on the planet for over 300,000 years, so that also. I mean, so there's so much lost in history that we may never know. There's so many things that get covered up.
Yeah.
Just because the planet's
Yeah,
constantly
we're
moving,
confused
changing.
about historical things from 100 years ago. So further than that is pretty wild.
Yeah, prehistory stuff. There's no record or no solid record.
Mm-hmm. Because a lot of what you get is just written accounts. Yeah. And I grew up when I was a kid. I loved to read biographies and autobiographies and stuff.
Yeah, me too.
What's really disturbing too is when Europeans first came to the Americas, especially like South America, where the Aztec and Mayan cultures and stuff were, they had massive cities. Well, even in North America, there were massive cities, millions of people, and disease killed 90% of the population of all the native people in the Americas.
Yeah.
I mean, it was there were entire cities lost in South America in the jungles within a few hundred years that people had no record of. I mean, entire like massive cities and civilizations. Yeah. Just gone.
Yeah.
It's unfathomable.
It really is. Yeah. And it's like you go to those jungles and there's these, you find that when they found those big cities, they were like, wow, the neat thing though is nature takes over quickly.
Really fast. That's
really
why they
fast.
lost them. Yeah. And they're doing, they have satellite technology now that can actually read into the earth so many meters.
Yeah.
So they're finding all these structures now in South America that they had no idea existed.
Yeah. Just buried deep.
Yeah. And just enveloped in the jungle.
Yeah.
But even in like the Sahara, like that used to be a thriving place, and they even think that the lost city of Atlantis may be there.
Yeah.
That may be where that was at, because there's a lot of documented history of that, and and massive cataclysms can completely erase anything that was there.
Yeah, and then it's like we have the glaciers melting, and so our sea level, and maybe back then our sea levels were a lot lower, and so there was more land exposed at that point in time. So.
Well, the what is it? The Greater Dry, or the Younger Dryas? It was about 12,500 years ago. There was some cataclysmic event like a meteorite or like an asteroid or a comet or something hit the northern hemisphere of the Earth and likely melted the glaciers rapidly. It's where a lot of the heavy erosion in the northern hemisphere comes from.
Yeah.
And that probably wiped out who knows how many people and how many civilizations. So, we could have been in a very different, or life could have been way different for everybody if that hadn't happened. So
all that stuff's neat. I just love,
It's fascinating.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah. Do you have a Cherokee name or anything?
No.
Okay.
I'm Jason Ledford.
I guess technically that is a Cherokee name.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. It's a 2021 Cherokee name.
Yeah.
Where do you live now?
I live in Sylvan, North Carolina.
Okay.
And we got a house there, and I teach filmmaking at Western Carolina University.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
And
how long have you been doing that?
Well, this is actually, This is my first semester actually teaching as the professor of record. I've kind of been co-teaching for a number of years. My job was the equipment manager for Western Carolina University, and so I was in charge of all the equipment, from the cameras, the lights, the grip equipment, everything.
Yeah.
And so my job was to train all the students on how to use every piece of equipment and set etiquette and how sets run and things like that. So
that's cool.
For the longest time, my job was to facilitate the production aspect of things, and so the other professors could concentrate on screenwriting, teaching, directing, and things like that. And so I was always like running the production aspect.
Learning how sets run is a specifically useful thing. Like you have to. That's, in my eyes, might be a little more important than a lot of the technical stuff, right?
Yeah. There is a hierarchy to how a set runs. Traditionally, I was lucky when I went back to school. I went back to school later in life. I made a pact with myself that I would get my undergrad before I turned 40 years old. And so I went to Western, and I was going to study music, but I don't know how to sight read a chart well enough to pass the audition at that point in time. And so I'd always loved storytelling, always loved movies, and they had a film program there. And Jack Shoulder, who was the director of Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Alone in the Dark, The Hidden, and those movies, he was the head of that department.
Nice.
And so I applied for it. I got accepted and started learning the craft of filmmaking. But learning the Hollywood style, because Jack Shoulder, Terry Curtis Fox, who was the screenwriting professor, and Arla Jarmanaki, my mentor in cinematography, had all Hollywood experience. And so they built the whole program on the whole Hollywood model, getting greenlit, pre-production, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so that's how I started learning. And so getting that working on the indie stuff, what I kind of quickly realized is I love the Hollywood model, but I love the indie aesthetic, the independent, go get 'em attitude. Yeah. But also I was like, man, some of these sets they just they don't run horribly well. And so I was like, what I always wanted to do is every set that I was on, I wanted to run it. I shouldn't say Hollywood style.
Like a big studio.
But a big studio.
Efficiently.
But I wanted to run it efficiently.
Yeah.
And so that's been my goal ever since. And so when I graduated, I went and run the roads, making short films with Jesse Knight and a bunch of other North Carolina filmmakers. And then I got on as a DIT on this reality television show called Woodfellas. And it only ended up one episode that was shown on Destination TV, Animal Planet, because Animal Planet was the one that pitched it at ITTV. And so they were shooting it down in Highlands, North Carolina. And they found a carpenter there who was doing what he was doing at that time was different, in that he was taking old barn woods and old antique woods, but this is when that style of putting them inside the house came around.
Yeah.
And so they found him, pitched the idea to him that they were going to build this reality television show around him. And so I got the call. They were like, "Are you local?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm local. I'm 50 minutes away, but local enough."
Local enough to take the job.
I wanted the job for sure. And
Yeah.
so it was DIT. And so I got up there and ran DIT for them for a week and a half on the episode, 14 hours a day, which was really weird. And I'd already knew about reality television. I already understood the concepts. But what I really didn't understand was how truly unreal it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Until I got into it, And so, and that was what really bothered the carpenter. And he kept saying at the end of every day, he's
how
like,
scripted it is.
Yeah, scripted. This is not how I talk, and this is all not real. And they were like, "It'll be all right. It's going to make a lot of money, to pay." And they brought his assistant up. They brought him up from Alabama or somewhere. And I remember the opening dinner, when you have the opening dinner to a lot of productions and stuff, and we're all the meet and greet. And I really looked over there, and that's the first time those two had ever met. But we were presenting them on screen as their buddies.
A team.
Yeah, team, co-workers and everything.
That's funny.
And he, it wasn't that he didn't like him. He just didn't like the unrealness of it,
Yeah.
I remember there's this funny story. He got this phone call, alleged phone call of this person that wanting to rip this barn down. And in that, he looks at, they want me to rip this barn down. It's got wormy chestnut wood on it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that barn, rip it down, use the wormy chestnut in this cabin that we're redoing. So go to the next day. The next morning, we're filming. He's got a wormy chestnut barn on his property. So we go film that. And they have a little race on camera about who could pop the wormy chestnut off, So what we do is we pop maybe 10 pieces off, put it on his trailer. We're filming the whole thing. Drives it to the location, pulls it off, fake cut one piece. And then we wrap for the day. We take all that wormy chestnut that we had pulled off the truck and put on the sawhorses, take it, put it back on his truck. They drive it back to his barn, and then he puts it back up on his barn. And so it was like, man, that is so, and the guy, he didn't like that, but I was like, man, that's reality television, It's just the way it's done. And, and it was one of the funniest experiences. Surrealist experience, I was like, wow, we're crafting reality. Yeah. And so the guy who is the executive producer on it, and that's what's neat about reality television is the executive producer is the director, showrunner.
Yeah.
And he grew up on Cops. He had done Cops. He had done American Hot Rod. I mean, he was big time, reality TV show producer and everything. And I was sitting there riding with him. And this is one thing that, I'm sitting in the front seat. And after about 5 minutes, I mean, I can't, I got to talk to you after a little while,
Right. Yeah.
It's like, who are you? What's going on? And plus you're a producer. And so I'm just letting pick your brain and find out what you know and what I can glean from it. And I was talking to him. He was asking me a bunch of questions. I was asking him a bunch of questions. And he said, yeah, but I'm not as bad as some of those reality shows. I don't. About the worst I get is I might take a saw and cut the cord, make for some drama on some TV,
Yeah.
And from then on, I waited for the show. I was like, well, the show's going to come out. If I want, the money was good. It was good money at the time.
Sure.
And I was like, I'll go shoot some more reality television, whatever. And so they released it to not a lot of fanfare. I guess it could have got picked up if the Carpenter wanted to do it again.
Yeah.
And so we watched it, and I chuckled. I was like, that's such a weird show.
Was it good though?
It was okay.
Yeah.
It was okay. I mean, it would have win. I mean, I've seen worse,
Yeah.
But the dynamic was funny.
It's getting someone who's actually being real to perform is when they're not a performer. It's difficult to ask.
Yeah, and that was he didn't like it.
Yeah.
Was he allowed to do any work, like actually build something?
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I think you have to look at it as it's a form of entertainment, and they're trying to market something, and if you're the artist, it's a good opportunity for you to get your name out there and just show some of your work and what your talent is. Yeah. Whether what's actually happening is real or not, it really doesn't matter. I think most people expect reality TV to not be reality today.
Well,
today,
but
no.
I mean, if you are an artist and you don't want to be that performative and fake anything, that's got to be a different type of nightmare.
That's one thing I like about Pawn Stars. Yeah. I really enjoy that show. I know a lot of it's bullshit, but but I love the terrible cheesy lines that they have.
They're not even trying to disguise it anymore.
Yeah, what was funny, what he didn't like is we do on the flies, the OTFs. Those are like, those are the quick little interviews. And so what happens when you do an OTF, you get the interview with him. And so my job as the DIT was I was supposed to get all the stuff and document parts of that, so of what was being shot, just a little bit. So because I had to every morning send that to New York.
Yeah.
Send a copy to the New York, and they would ingest it. And only did after they ingest it and they gave me the call back, then I could wipe cards. But while they were doing that, they were reviewing everything and calling back and saying, okay, his OTF was cool. Now we've rewritten what we want him to say because we want it to be able for the general layman, from the general audience, to be able to understand what he's articulating.
Like we're all idiots.
Well,
Yeah.
A little bit. But I think when they watch that, the reason they're probably good at getting it in layman language is because they are layman.
Yeah.
Basically what they're saying is make it so we can understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
And
Or
so-
they're just trying to overthink it, I think.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, you know, sometimes people do things just so they have something to do. It's like job security.
I do that. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I sometimes I just got to do things to do things. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think in the corporate world, like you have to seem important.
Yeah.
Like
Justify your
purposeful.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because like if you work with somebody that's not an actor and you try to have them act, or just you're telling them not to act, like don't act, just say this and just be you. But it's like for a lot of people, there's like this disconnect, and it's just always horrible.
Yeah.
It never works.
Yeah. It's like, what does be me mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you've never done that before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
It's hard
you
to be me with this camera, right?
Yeah.
All these people around me.
100%. You said you're a musician as well.
Yeah.
What's your? When did you get started with that? What are you doing now with it?
Oh, when did I started playing music?
Kind of high school, right?
Yeah. Yeah, my mom's husband at the time bought me a bass guitar, and I was big into Rush, and so this.
How old were
probably
you?
14.
Okay.
Yeah, 14, but I didn't have an amp.
Ah,
And he was a shady type dude anyway, but yeah. So but I was playing, I didn't know how to start, but what I did know how to do was pick it up and start acting like I was Geddy Lee,
Yeah.
and okay, I listened to Geddy play, so let me try, and it was horrible, of course, but he came in one day, and I guess he needed money or something, and he sold my bass guitar. After a couple months, and then I was like, "Where's my bass guitar?" "Oh, I never heard you playing it, so I didn't think you liked it."
wow.
And so he sold my bass guitar, and I'm like, "Yeah, you couldn't hear me playing it because I didn't have an amp."
Right. Yeah.
I could barely hear me play.
Yeah.
What a scam is this?
Yeah. And so I've always wanted to be a musician, my whole life. And so by the time I got to college, my first foray into college was a disaster, I majored in partying, but,
Yeah.
But I bought a little amp, and I bought a RG470 Ibanez guitar.
Cool.
And I remember I would make god-awful noise in the dorm room and everything. And so I took the amp back home when I had left school that summer, and Jody, I can't remember Jody's last name, but I took it into his shop, and he's the one that gave me my first guitar lesson.
Nice.
And I told him, I said, "This amp sounds horrible. What do I need to do?" And he plugged it in, and that thing made sweet music. Yeah. And he said, "It's not the amp, it's the player."
Yeah. Operator error.
Yeah, operator error. And so I said, "Okay, all right." And so he was like, "Okay, I'm going to give you some lessons." And he showed me how to play Fly By Night, because he asked me what I want to play. And I put Dream Theater down on his desk. And he just looked at me and said, No. He said, "Why don't you learn the basic chords first?"
Right.
And so I learned the chords. I learned Fly By Night. And then he looked at me and he said, "You can continue coming in and pay me $20 a week to give you lessons, or you can play on your own." And I looked at him and I said, "I think I'll learn to play on my own." And so I just started woodshedding, and I would learn how to play by I'd read tab, and I'd learn licks instead of learning. And so it's weird, and a lot of my friends laugh at this. Is like the way I learned how to play was more of an improv style. I just started learning. I take licks from all these songs, and I get bored of learning the song, and because I already had ideas in my head. So then I'd start learning riffs, and then I'd start taking those riffs and incorporating them into my own music. And so we used to always bang around. There was this place, this garage. We had a good friend named Jeremy Kephart. He was like the show drummer for school. Some schools had the rock band for pep rallies and stuff like that. But he was an amazing drummer. And Jesse and I would go in there and we just make ungodly noise. We would put the record tape in and we would record everything. And then after about 3 hours, we'd listen to it and I said, oh, about an hour and a half into here, we got something good. Yep. But I always wanted to put a band together and I always wanted to sing. And so, but I couldn't, I was living in small Podunk, Murphy, North Carolina. And I wasn't getting any hits to do anything. So I decided to learn to play guitar. And I figured, and this was, probably 20 years old that I was late really learning to play guitar, but I really put my mind into learning how to play guitar and singing and everything. And so then I started putting bands together. By the late 90s, I started putting my first bands together and played in a band called Exit 69. We were an improv band, really, but we learned some jam band, learned some songs, and just then play at parties and just make it up. But by that time, we were starting to get better at understanding how to make it up.
That's cool.
And then I moved away and put another band called Burnt Bridges together, which was a political punk band, political rock band, I should say. We had a friend of mine that we loved wrestling, and so we went down to this wrestling show and we started playing. And then there was he didn't like us there, but
Uncle Bill.
Uncle Bill's, yeah. But, we wrote a bunch of songs about some protesting stuff because we were protesting a lot of stuff that was going on in the early 2000s and everything. And so we started writing protest music and took it out there because after a little while, we were protesting in Cherokee. And my friend, John Denley, was the drummer. And I remember he said something to one of the police officers one time, and he was like, why you should be with us, we're protesting some government things and everything. He said, we did that and we lost. Now you either want to leave here or I'll take you to jail. And I was like, okay. And at that point in time I realized, I was like, man, we're out here protesting, let's put a band together and write music. And so then we started writing protest music, and we were all over the map with our style of music, but and so that eventually just evolved into more like a stoner metal band, stoner rock band. Yeah. And Jesse joined the band a couple years later, and then we started playing as much as we could and then we had drummer issue, and so that band kind of fizzled out after about 6 years. And I was kind of done. And I said, the hell with it, I'm done. I'm not playing much anymore. And that's when I decided to go back to school. And but my friends kept knocking on my door. And they said, Jason, we met this drummer, and we want you to come out and play. I said, no, I'm not going to jam with anybody right now. But they were persistent for about 3 months. They were like, we found this rehearsal space, and we want you to come out and play. And I was like, fine. And because I was starting to miss it anyways. And so I grabbed my guitar and my amp, and I went to that rehearsal space, and I never stopped. And we put the Prophets of Time together, and that's the band.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm currently in right now. We put that band together. Members came and went. We had our biggest issues was consistently having a drummer stay with us.
Many drummers.
Yeah, so many drummers. But we were learning. I got one of my good friends to play rhythm guitar, and they asked me, he said, who do you want to play with? There's a ton of talented guitar players out there. And I was like, I want to play with that guy, I want to play with that guy. But ultimately, there's this cat I know. I want to play with him. This guy named Tony Pate. I said, I want to play with him. I love him, his rhythmic quality. I love his adventurousness. And so we put him in the band, and then we started playing. And then we've been growing and learning. And I think the last 2 years, we got this drummer from Minnesota named Mike Rogers, and he's our age. We finally found a drummer that was our age, and not a younger drummer and everything. And he was put together, had his shit together and everything. And for us at this time, we're all grown men, and it takes a lot to get us going. But we also, we also got our lives, and we're responsible. We have families and all kind of stuff. And so found Mike Rogers, because we had to go on a hiatus for a little bit, but found Mike Rogers, and we started playing with him, and the songwriting, and I think this is the best version of us clicking as a complete unit, listening to one another, playing live together, rehearsing, that we've had since we've been playing since 2010.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we've kept, everybody said, you guys, 6 of y'all keeping the band together past 2 years. Good luck with that. And we went out and played our 10th anniversary show in Nantahala, one of the brewing companies down there, and we had a great turnout, and people they were loving what we're doing now, and we're loving what we're doing. We're writing good music. We're still a jam band. We still like to let things go, but we write composed music.
You booking bigger gigs now and stuff?
We're starting to get there.
That's good.
Yeah.
So I want to go back a little bit. What was your childhood like, and what led you to art or like music and filmmaking and all that kind of stuff? What?
Well, my mom was an artist.
Okay.
But she loved to paint. But her thing was she loved to do photorealistic art.
Oh,
and my uncle was an artist on my mom's side. He's an artist, and then my dad was an artist as well, but not so much he used to dance and stuff like that and draw, but loved music. But he read to me from the time I was little. And same with my mom. And so they broke up probably, I think, when I was 3 years old or something like that. It's a long time. And then, so yeah, I grew up in a broken home and a bunch of stuff. And I just found solace in the art. And so I started drawing when I was a kid, because that's and then listening to music, constantly listening to music, and reading books. My mom wouldn't let me read comic books, and she,
oh, wow.
Yeah. And that was probably when I was 14 years old, I bought my first comic book. But I love storytelling and watching movies and reading and everything. And so that's kind of where it all started.
Comic books are kind of like storyboards.
Yeah.
What was it about the comic books your mom wasn't into? Was spending money on them wasteful, or was
she didn't. She looked at them as beneath art. It was a frivolous art form that she didn't want me. She thought that the way my vocabulary would suffer from comic books, because she wanted me to read real books, and comic books were just blurbs on pages, and she thought it was a dumbed down art form.
Which is funny coming from an artist.
Yeah,
to feel that way.
I know. And now that I think about it, though, but that really informed me of what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a storyteller, and ultimately that's what what I do.
Yeah.
And I think it all, because I wanted to draw comic books all through high school and stuff. Yeah. And so once she unleashed the beast on comic books and stuff, I just kept going. And so it was either playing music or comics, wanting to draw comics, but I always wanted to play music. Music was my first passion in life.
Very cool.
I used to sing all the time, and
there's a gym next door, and they just started working out. That's why we were all looking at each other. I was trying to figure out what that noise was.
I thought somebody was knocking.
Then I heard,
like, it's Parker. Parker. Got him. I'll be right back. Show up late, interrupt the thing.
You're good. No problem.
I want to say something about this comic book thing here in a second.
Yeah, we'll get right back to comic books.
Yeah. But that was the funny thing about the comics, is once we went past that and I got into it and I told her, and she realized that that it wasn't as bad
it's
as
like
she thought.
she needed a tether to it, or a reason to enjoy
guess,
it,
yeah,
right? And the fact that you enjoyed it was enough for her.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Because maybe that's her opinion on that, was because she was an artist. Because when I was a kid, I don't know if it's the same for you, Jesse, but I was encouraged to get it. Like, I remember being handed comic books almost to keep me busy. I guess it was like the iPad like kids have now, you know what I mean?
And think about it. It might have had something to do with the breakup, the divorce.
Yeah.
My dad loved comic books,
there you
and
go.
that now that I think about it, it might have stemmed from that or something.
Right.
I don't want to, I can't speak for my mom.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I couldn't honestly tell you if that was with that or not, but I just remember her telling me, comics are.
I remember we made our own comic anyway in
Yeah.
high school, so
That's
it
cool.
didn't matter. It was good and terrible.
It was bad. It was good and bad, bad and terrible.
What were your preferred comics when you finally did get into it?
The X-Men.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I used to love the X-Men.
Yeah,
That's
I
good.
got it. I remember probably when I was 8th grade, maybe Smoky Mountain Elementary. This kid had he had the Crisis on Infinite Earths and an X-Men comic book, and I just dove in the Crisis on Infinite Earths, loved it, and the X-Men were cool. At that point in time, it was right. It was before. It was right before the John Byrne. Before 200 it hit and everything, and so
When I grew up, X-Men was a little more indie than like the DC was mainstream where I came from, and then the X-Men was definitely kind of like a little underground type of thing. We found that a little bit later.
Yeah, it was neat because X-Men, what I didn't know at the time wasn't a big seller for Marvel when I started, in the late 80s and stuff like that. But by the time then, all of a sudden, X-Men went huge, and that became like their flagship thing. And the Avengers and Spider-Man were kind of flagging, a little lagging, I guess should be the word. They were on everything. And the X-Men were the darlings of Marvel.
Right.
And now, due to the Marvel Comics universe, which has just destroyed the X-Men and the filmmaking aspect of it, the Avengers are now the darlings of the Marvel universe, and it's the cyclical nature of things.
Yeah,
it is interesting. Maybe I'm wrong here, but it felt to me that as an adult, DC was into my adulthood. DC was the more powerful of the two brands, and then with the movies is where Marvel kind of pushed ahead pretty firmly, right? Like Superman was the biggest. Superman and Batman were the biggest characters for a very long time, and now they just aren't. Yeah. There's a generation of kids who just. It's like, fuck those guys. You know what I mean? It's interesting.
Well, and at that point in time, DC in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, for me, DC had the darker.
It's always been darker.
The darker
comic,
brands, darker stuff. I love Daredevil. Daredevil's my absolute favorite character.
Yeah.
And the Frank Miller run on Daredevil that'll go down as one of my favorite runs in comics. And then I became a huge Flash fan. And then Mark Waid's version of Wally West becoming Flash, some great stories. And then you realize how much the Flash, as they moved it on through being the fastest person in the universe, how much the DC continuity hinged on Flash and the cosmic treadmill and all that stuff.
So when you started getting into comic books and you convinced your mom that they were a valuable art form, was it because of the storytelling that you were taking out of it? Is that how you presented it?
Yeah.
Well, I think she was looking at it as books, and it's really not a book. It's a visual art. It's like it's a film.
Yeah.
Sort of.
What were you going to say about the comic books now?
I just wasn't allowed to touch them because they were Dad's collectibles. Like they were all sealed. I wasn't allowed to get them out. There was 2 drawers in their bedroom. I wasn't allowed to touch the top one. I'm not going to mention what was in there. You're welcome, Mom. And, I think it was actually the very bottom one was all the comic books, but yeah. So
your dad did he keep them for a long time?
Yeah, he still got them.
Still got them.
Yeah.
Jeez, man.
Yeah, he still got them. I've told him to sell them.
Yeah.
Golden Age comics.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, get them graded or something. That's big business right now.
Yeah.
My dad's mom. It was funny because every time my dad would go leave, he'd leave his comic books, and she would always throw them away.
Oh, no shit. You hear that story so many times, man. It's like, oof.
He was so upset because he had the original Conan. He used to tell me all the comics he said, but my mom just threw them away. Every time I left home, she'd throw my comics away. I was like, man.
Yeah, no, he still got them there. I've told him. I don't know. Who knows? I always feel like now is the best time to sell anything. It's like
A lot of that stuff's not worth what it used to be though because of the internet. Because there's, if there are any out there, you can easily find them.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, there's a point in time somewhere in the 90s where they just started mass producing anything, and previous to that, it was those situations where people either kept them or they were getting thrown out, and that's where the value does come from.
Exclusive stuff.
With the internet, it actually those old ones are actually hyper valuable because there's more competition for buying them too.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the
less of them survived.
a lot of the
the
late
rare ones.
90s stuff is actually the million print runs, and those they're finally starting to actually see some traction.
Yeah.
Because for the longest time they were in the 25-cent bins, you know, and not boarded, bagged and boarded, and so. And now with a lot of floods and all the stuff that happens, natural disasters, fires, and everything, that they're finally starting to they're getting more in value because they're starting to be finding a real good mint condition one.
Plus the materials were a lot cheaper they used on those books, so they don't last.
Yeah, they degraded a lot faster.
Yeah.
Man, if I'd never jumped off Spawn, you know, after like issue
I've still
50,
got 'em.
after
I
issue
have the
50
first
are some of the
25,
hardest
I
ones to
think.
find and some of the most valuable ones.
Yeah, wow, that's wild.
It's pretty neat. I was going back looking at them because I got my big collection, and my wife's been on to me for years. Well, you going to sell these or what? I said, they're Xander's now. She's like, no.
They stay in the house.
Yeah, and I threaten to sell them all the time. You know, I was like, man, if I could sell that, I could take that money and I could do something else with all that money.
Your son. So you said your son is 7 years old, and my assumption is he's pretty heavy into comics and stuff like that, right? Are you got him on that track? He's not interested.
No.
Really?
No.
What's he into?
He's into Legos, trains.
That's good.
Star Wars, art, drawing, creating, building things. Yeah. Soccer.
So, you know, I'm trying to think about the best advice, but Meet Kevin. Got him Kevin on YouTube. If you look at Meet Kevin, he has this thing he talks about with people with crypto, and they're like, if selling your crypto, like if you just fell into a lot of money, if selling it is life-changing, if it can change the direction of your life, then holding on to it's a mistake. And so I think that's the same thing, like I would say with comics, apply the same thing. Like if selling those comics could shift the direction of your life and the life of your child because of that, then I think it's a good time to sell it. Because what we do, and I think this is true for me, as parents, is we like to think the things that we really care about and find some value in that our children will too. And the truth is that may be true, but normally it's after we're gone.
Right, yeah.
So it's like, you know, it can benefit their life right now. So that's like what I apply to myself. Like, I don't get emotionally attached to anything. Everything I own is for sale. I won't sell my kids' stuff or my wife's stuff, but everything I got is for sale. Everything.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Dad still got his comic book collection. I've been telling him to sell it for 20 years.
Do you not have any milestone things, though, that you keep? Like
Mementos?
Small things that you
No,
bought
I've
for
got
a reason?
some like, I mean, the very first Rolex I got, when I lost everything, I had to sell it, obviously.
But you would have kept that, though, right?
It was, I don't know, probably not. My very first rings, that's why I don't wear rings. I mean, I sold them all. Actually, when we restarted, I sold one of the rings I had left.
Wow.
When we started back over just to put into the businesses. Yeah, I try not. I mean, literally, like I've got awards I won when I was at State Farm. I got awards from Allstate. They're not worth anything, or they'd be sold too. Right. They're not worth anything to anybody else.
Yeah.
I've thought about getting rid of them just to declutter my life.
Do you buy any artwork or anything that you like to keep?
I've got that one piece we had commissioned from the guys in Charlotte. Yeah. But it's for sale too.
What about NFTs? Is that a thing that you guys?
I don't own any NFTs yet.
Yeah. I own some, but they're mine.
But as soon as I buy them, they're all for sale.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I buy crypto regularly. I'm investing stock. I mean, you know, it's same. I have the same principle. If I feel like anything is worth more and it gets to a certain point, I'm going to go ahead and unload it.
Yeah.
So with the NFTs, in that I've looked into a little bit of the NFT, and what I'm gathering with the NFT is the artist who makes it then sells it, and the person invests in that, buys it, but it's part of it's on the internet, and then you can sell that again and get money for it. I mean, or does it just keep giving you money if you own the NFT? Then once you sell it, whoever sells it down the line, you still make money from it.
Yeah, good.
So you're linking a blockchain to a piece of art or anything really, and You like if it's a piece of digital art, you upload the digital art to the platform you're using to create the NFT, and then you can either create your own NFT, which is more expensive, or you can use whatever platform that is. You can use their NFTs and connect that blockchain to that piece of art. And you could say, there's one of these, and that's it, just one, and then it's an NFT. Or you can say, I want to do like 100 of these, and then each one of those will have an NFT attached to it or blockchain attached to it. And then once it's created, it's made, and you can price it wherever you want to price it, like an entry price, and you can set it up for auction, and people can bid on it or whatever. But whatever you price it at, like if you priced it at $1, it'll show you like how much that blockchain is worth that it's attached to, that creates the NFT, and its price will fluctuate based on the market of the crypto market. So if the markets are up, the price of that will actually change. It'll go up, so it and you can always drop the price too. Like if you started out at $100 or $300 or whatever, you can drop it.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's really just like a copyright.
Yeah, because that's the one thing I haven't. I have a friend who's in crypto, and he ended up with a bunch of Ethereum years ago, and he's
good for him.
Yeah, he's just letting it set, and he's very valuable now. But it's just with crypto, and so for me, I just started messing dabbling in the buying stocks, just to round out my portfolio. Because was the one thing about rounding back to me working for Western Carolina is I didn't have a permanent job, and they would never give me a permanent full-time job, so I never got the benefits and wasn't allowed to get the 50-50 investment and start investing. And so what I started doing is just kind of studying and buying some shares here and there and slowly doing it myself.
Right.
So it's like, if I got to look out for my family one way or another, I need to research and study and see if I can do something myself.
Yeah, I agree. Well, a lot of what these institutions do, you can do. Edward Jones is one of the largest ones out there, and they're known for dollar cost averaging, which is literally is don't try to time the market, just invest. Pick an amount you're going to invest every week or every month and do it every month, no matter whether the market's up or down. And then you end up with an average price, right? So if you buy when the shares are up, that's fine. If you buy when the shares are down, that's fine too, because your average purchase price of that share is going to you dollar cost average over a long period of time, then you end up with an average entry point, right?
Yeah.
So that if you buy all the time, then you never miss the best of the market, and you never miss the worst of the market. So, because in theory, if the market dips, everything's on sale, right?
Yeah.
But who knows? How do you time that? And who knows what's a dip? So, their method is just buy consistently, buy regularly, buy often kind of deal. Set something systematic and just stick to it. So who knows? It's very stressful to do it the other way.
Yeah, because like right now, I mean, there's a huge dip,
I mean,
research is saying buy if you can, buy if you can. But
I think this time every year, I think during the holidays, I think I historically everybody at Thanksgiving's trying to show off, and you have all these gatherings, and I think things have a little boom. This is historically my opinion, of the way it worked. And then for some reason, I felt like all those people that bought around Thanksgiving are selling just prior to Christmas. Then you add an uncertainty in the market right now in the economy. I wasn't a fan of some of the things in the Build Back Better bill. There were some things about it that I liked, actually. There were some things about it I didn't like. But it doesn't look like it's going to go through. I think there was a lot of financial incentives for Americans. So I think there was a euphoria tied to that, which the fact that they don't think that group that could have benefited from it feels like they're maybe not going to. I think that creates some type of negative impact in the market. So you got all this like unknown and question, and stocks are tanking, most of crypto's tanking. So you're starting to see some bottoms. I mean, I can tell you personally, that's what I'm doing. I feel like everything's on sale. I could be wrong, but I'm just going to re-up. And I did it 2 weeks ago. I did it last week, and those weren't the bottom, but I invest weekly anyway. So, but I'm thinking that we're starting to see the floor in a lot of different companies. What I feel like a floor has been established. So I'm gonna try and come at it. I think now is a good time to buy, but who knows? I mean, there's so many factors now. I think the best way to think about stock, unless they go under, if it's a long-term company, if it's a company that's going to be here 30, 40 years from now, or 10 years from now even, then what its temporary value is irrelevant almost, because you really own the same number of shares. It only matters what they're worth when you go to sell it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, if everything's on sale, you go buy it.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're a musician and your favorite guitar goes on sale, you go buy 2 of them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way I look at it, and just try to keep that method, and try not to get caught up in all the politics that surround it.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
and that's been my strategy, because once I got into it, they asked, "What is your goal?" Well, everything I was reading. Ask yourself,
yeah,
what is your goal? Are you trying to be a day trader or do any of that stuff? And I'm like, no, I'm in for the long haul. If I'm investing my money, I want to make sure I'm investing my money to make it grow, make it work for me. I don't, want it to.
There are a lot of people that claim to have this magic sauce, but if you look at it compared to the people that invest in the market over a long period of time, they very rarely beat the market. Mm-hmm. Very rarely. I'm not going to say people don't, but very rarely. Yeah. And so that's one of those things. So for me, I try to do a mix of both. I consistently invest every week, but I do try to take into consideration if I feel like things are high, like record high, I may back down on that number and keep more cash reserves, and which is what I did this year. Mm-hmm. And then when I feel like things are on sale, I'm still buying every week no matter what, because nobody's perfect. We don't know what high really is or what low is. But I kept my cash reserves higher, and then when I feel like things are down like they have been, I start upping that amount. And the more they fall, the more I actually raise the amount I'm buying. So technically you could look at that as taking a bigger risk.
Yeah.
But the companies I'm investing in, if they go under, honestly, they would affect the global economy almost. So it would take a lot.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of the way I try to hedge my bet. But, and the way I look at it is, if those go under, my cash was worthless anyway.
Yeah.
Right. You said, the thing with Thanksgiving and Christmas, do you see, when does that trend change?
Euphoria, the Euphoria of Spring, of New Year. It's also tied to taxes. So I think February 15th. It was a little prior to that, but now it's around February 15th where people start getting their tax refunds. You've got the euphoria of a new year. You've got vitamin D increase in most of the country where the sun starts coming back out, so you don't have the winter blues that are going on from a vitamin D deficiency. So I think there's all these factors that start to kick in early spring. So starting, say, middle of February through early spring, you've got that euphoria that kicks in. And I think that alone affects the market regardless of all the other factors. So that's what I think happens. I mean, and again, this is my opinion and my, if you go back and look, that's my experience of how I've been kind of anticipating it, because some of the fall is cyclical, some of the fluctuation rather is cyclical, and if you look at it, it's very predictable. So Warren Buffett says something like, if there's a major price fluctuation that has nothing to do with the metrics of the actual business itself. So if there's some bad news that happens for Bank of America or any other bank out there or any other company, but that news doesn't actually affect the day-to-day business, it's actually just some type of thing that's been sensationalized by the media and spread like wildfire, it will cause a temporary dip in that stock, right? But if the actual metrics of how they do their business are not affected, long-term, it will get back, it will normalize. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of what I look at, like when there's seasonal dips and hikes. That's the way I look at that. It has nothing to do really with the metrics of the business. It has more to do with the mentality or the mental state of the people that are investing in it. Mm-hmm. So there's this interesting thing too, like Robinhood, and I own shares in Hood, and I actually actively use Robinhood as well. But Robinhood opened up the door for younger investors. Yeah. Yeah. Right, like they really brought it to the masses, and so there is, and you can own fractional share. There's all these different things you can do through Robinhood, and there has been some speculation that this leads to a more volatile stock market because you have people that are investing in smaller dollar amounts, and more likely to use it more like a savings account, checking account, in and out of positions, day trading. The Robinhood method is a little bit different, so they've said it leads to a more volatile stock market, which time will tell. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think that could be accurate.
I was back on the cyclical thing. I was looking at I saw a chart the other day that was stating because everybody, the media, it's the market's dropping. But then if you looked at the cyclical nature of everything, back to what you were talking about, December is always, every single year is always a dip.
Yep.
And then you look at the most active buying times, and that's April through May.
Yeah.
April through May are the active buying times, and sometimes in September, August, but then it's always going to dip back down again.
Yeah.
So,
Basically spring. I mean, I think it's euphoria. I think part of it. But the other thing is like everybody says, like if we polled 1 million people right now and said, hey, when should you buy stock, right? Oh, when it falls, right? But virtually no one does it because of fear.
Yeah.
Right? Like, everything's falling right now. The world's in disarray. And I'm going to take this week, and this is a fictitious number, but I'm going to take this week and I'm going to buy, 1,000 shares of Tesla, and I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy that. And because I think these things are on sale, right? I'm going to spend considerable money, right? But most people would never do it because they're worried it's going to zero. There's this fear in the air about everything right now, which is also, in addition to the seasonal, the cyclical part of this, which is also keeping things really low. And then you've got very few people that'll buy. And then what happens is that, let's call those institutional investors or people that are seasoned investors are making those decisions, but that's a rarity. And then what happens is by early spring, everybody else catches up, right? But the market's already started moving in the right direction. That's when the masses start investing, is when it starts hitting the news. Like when the news cycle says, oh, stocks are back up, we've recovered, when positivity is being spoken, right, to everybody.
Creating excitement.
It creates excitement, and then that's this euphoria that spreads, and then everybody's got a little bit extra money because of taxes, and it's spring, and then we got all these different factors. There's this optimism that sets in, and then those people come back into the market, right? I'm not saying it's the wrong time. I'm just saying that many of those same people are the ones that should be buying stock right now that won't.
Yeah.
Right? And now some of those people aren't buying stock right now because right now they're buying Christmas gifts, which is okay too.
Yeah.
That's what I don't know jack shit about any of this stuff, but just from my perspective, I always see it. It seems to me that people get more concerned with knowing the amount of money they have right around Christmas. They get a little tighter, and then and then right around tax time is when when people are most aware of the money that they have and put it out there. But buying it consistently, like you said, is an interesting thing that I've never put any real thought into that. That's a disciplined.
Yeah, $20 a week. Pick a number.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be a lot. I mean, you'd be surprised. People overestimate or underestimate. They overestimate what they can do in a short period of time. They underestimate what they can do in a lifetime. Mm-hmm. So pick a small number and commit to it, and you'd be surprised. But
if you were somebody like me who's not involved with that stuff at all, right? And you were saying, let's say it's $20 a week. What's the advice you have for where to place that money?
Man,
you don't think in those in that small amount, right? So it's a different thing.
I would honestly, there's a couple of different answers. You can index funds, S&P 500. I mean, literally, you can just. The key is, I don't think at that point is. You get in this thing and you go, well, if you'd have put the money into Dogecoin during this week or this year or this month, you'd be worth millions. If you'd have put it into Dogelon Mars, if you'd have put it into Tesla before it ran up and then the stock split, like you could play all these games like let's pick a stock. But I think at $20 or $100 or $200 a week, I think the key is just the commitment of doing it.
Right.
So even index funds, either low fees, low investment, you can get a Robinhood account. You can trade. There's no fees to trade. So, I mean, you can do very basic things. And I think starting at that amount, and if you want to pick stocks, I think, again, I like Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, invest in things right? At least so you can understand and justify it, right? Like, what kind of toothpaste do you use?
Right.
Is it the same toothpaste you've used for 20 years?
That was one of the first people I met that was really invested in stocks and things like that and knowledgeable about it. He was just like, every time we would be on the road, and he would only stop at Starbucks. He was like, I'm invested in Starbucks.
There you go. No, I mean, if there's a thing in your life that you use religiously that you love the product, invest in that.
Yeah.
Like if you see value in it, here's a good way. I mean, I'll tell you, there for a while when I was first starting back over, see, I have a curse. I can't just invest $20 in the basically an index, like blindly. I can't. So what I was doing, even if it was $20, $50, $100, I wanted to know where the traffic is. Like if you're in fast food, where's the traffic? Chick-fil-A, right?
Right.
I mean,
Where are the lines long?
where are the lines long? What businesses can you? What like Starbucks, right?
Yeah, right.
Like if you really want to see, forget all the news. Where are all the people spending their money? If you just go do that, basic. These are no nonsense methods, litmus tests, right? Like where are the people?
Yeah.
And invest in those things, right?
Yeah, that makes
And I mean,
sense.
like even if you just water it way down, the key is invest in something, right? I think if you start investing in speculative things, you have a higher chance to lose. And Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, they're known for first rule is don't lose money. Rule number 2 is referring to rule number 1. And once people have money, they're much, much, much less concerned with the return they get on that money. They're worried about the return of the money, right? The first thing is they want to get their initial capital back, right? Secondary to that is what's the return on that. So I think if you just keep that method early on, if you're going to do speculative things, I don't think you should be doing it when you've got a $20 to $100 a week budget, right? Because you can't afford to lose your principal, right? If you're going to take some level of speculation, make sure it's a piece of what you're doing, maybe 10% of what you're doing. Come up with something you can live with, and I think, and then again, just stick to it. And you can't just stick to it for 2 or 3 weeks. I think you stick to it for a while, for months, maybe a year. And then as you go, you're going to educate. In theory, if you're one of those people that starts to learn about the process, sounds like you are, you start to educate yourself, and maybe you can make better investment decisions that are more guided, more in line with the way that you feel about the world, with the economy, with your local community. So like that's the way that's where I started anyway. I invested in things I knew, and I just went, what's busy? Like for me, when you remember when was it Compact USA or what's the name of that company? Anybody remember that?
The computer company?
The computer company.
Yeah, Compact.
Yeah.
Compact, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, didn't they
It
used
was
to have
Compact Presario or something.
Presario or something like that?
Yeah.
There used to be these stores that
Yep.
were like Best Buy, right?
Yep, Compact.
I think it was, yeah.
It was Compact USA.
And I remember going into them and being dead. Dead. And I'm like, man, this is a lot. This is a massive store, and there's never anybody in here.
It's not good. Yeah.
Right? And I remember going, like, I should short this company. And at the time, I didn't fully understand what that meant. I knew basically I need to bet that this company is going to go away, right?
Yeah.
And I remember saying this at 2 or 3 different family gatherings, and I kept saying it, and I spoke about it. And like 2 years later, they went bankrupt. I would have made a ton of money because, again, I just went into this massive square footage, and every one that I would go into, there was one in Virginia Beach I went into, every one of the ones I would go into, they were empty. I'm like, there's no way these companies are profitable, right? There's no way that they can sustain.
So when you say short this company and you think they're going out of business, what's the move there? How do you make the
That's a
money
little
on
bit more
that?
complex, but essentially what you're doing is let's say that the share price is $100 a share and it goes to $20 a share, you would make the spread. You can make $80 per share. So it's pretty much the exact same thing as if you bought it at 20 and wrote it to 100.
Yeah.
You can essentially lock in at the $100 price and write it to $20 and make the difference.
You're guessing that it's going to fail,
Yeah.
and you're saying,
if you think about this, if it goes the other way,
Right.
right? So think about what happened that made the news, where Game Day or GameStop and Carnival Cruise Lines, where these big companies, and I do think some of these companies do, where they have so much power to short that, again, it's not the actual metrics of the business that are keeping the stock low. What keeps the stock price low is all these short positions, right? So we start getting a very complex conversation. So let's ignore all that. But you see how they lost billions of dollars because they bet it was going to go down and it went up, right?
Yeah.
Because so many people started buying the stock. So you can also lose your tail, right?
And that's what caused all the big fear and everything.
Yeah.
And why Robinhood and all these platforms had to stop the trading is because there is all these companies that had bought the low option, and they just jacked that thing up, and now you're holding the bag.
Yeah.
You're like, I got to buy these shares at this higher price, and and I don't even own them.
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think shorting services, there's a purpose for it. I'm not a big fan of some of the practices, but I kind of was happy when some of those companies lost billions. It's
well, it showed the holes in the system.
Yeah. So, what I mean? Like for me, I think too, man, don't get emotional about it. Like it's the craziest thing. I've seen people that'll just blow money on liquor, blow money on whatever, parties, gatherings, entertain themselves, food. don't think twice about it, right? Use it one time, be done with it, right? But let them invest one time in the market, and it dropped 10%. Oh my God, this is terrible. I'm never doing this again. Like it's so funny to me. But I think you go into it with the mindset that you got to pay to play a little bit. Here's the other thing you do is go to Edward Jones, go to one. I'm not sponsored by Edward Jones. Go to Merrill Lynch. Go to any one of these other companies if you want, and get somebody and set something up. I'm not a big fan of insurance products that are tied to the stock market, to be honest with you. But most of your insurance agents that you have your auto insurance and stuff through offer some type of IRA or some type of savings account, things like that.
Yeah.
So there are resources out there. I'm not a big fan of. I should say this. I'm not a big fan of like universal life or whole life. So I'm not a big fan of turning a life insurance product into an investment product. But I can talk about that another time.
Yeah. There's also like financial advisors you can go to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just independent offices.
Yeah.
Yep.
But in the grand scheme of things, do your homework.
Do your homework. Yeah.
You can do a lot of it yourself.
Because a lot of what of my thought process is like I was listening to I liked Motley Fool. I was listening to one of their Monday morning plays, and they were like, it's not about this stock or that stock. It's about your portfolio,
right?
And moving that forward and letting it grow. You're going to have winners. You're going to have losers.
Yep.
But as long as you have your portfolio balanced.
Yeah. And I think that's accurate too. I think the big thing is just be involved. So I kind of joke, and this is not meant offensively, but I've told people like my problem with a brick of gold, and I'll spare everybody the story, but if you go back, to the 1920s, a brick of gold would have cost this similar to what a 2 or 3 bedroom home would have cost. And the difference is if you'd have bought the home, you could have rented it the whole time, right? So you can derive an income from it without selling it. But that brick of gold, every single year, you could have family gatherings and show everybody. It grew in value, but it never made more gold. It didn't make baby gold every month, And so one of the things that is interesting to fast forward, this is kind of like comic books and other things. The only way you get the value is by selling it. Then you no longer have it. Yeah. Well, now when you look at NFTs, what's interesting in some of these other things where you can essentially turn a piece of digital art into a, let's use a stock. Like it has a way to generate a value. Technically, there's a way to generate a value and see it actually grow in value without actually selling it. There are some ways, and so that's kind of interesting that you can take. It's almost like a digital comic book, right? Like you've got this thing that you can enjoy, that you can see, and that becomes much more liquid. So like finding the right person to buy a comic book, you find the right person, they'll spend the world, right? But I think as we start to get into this digital thing, I think it becomes easier to unload and more like a stock. That's the great thing about the stock market. It's very liquid.
Yeah. The interesting thing about the NFTs also is you can the creator of the NFT can set it up where it has a residual component to it. So every time that an NFT gets sold in the future, you get a piece of it, like 10% or something of those sales. Yeah, which is really interesting.
Yeah, so I think that some of these things are starting to change. I will also say this though: there's this, anytime something new, nobody knows what the hell's going on. I don't know it, right? Like we got best guess. Again, it's euphoria. It's like there's a craze right now. You can go spend $20,000. I've seen countless videos of people doing this, designing these things, launching them, turning $2 and $3 million. People are just blindly buying because they don't know. Yes. I think. There are artists all over the world, right? My kids draw on paper. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's got a value to be sold. Yeah. And I think right now there's a lot of NFTs, a lot of things that are just being sold just because. Like there's this mass rush, and there's a limited supply at the moment. But
I think it has a lot to do with our history. I think every time the people who are late to new technology or new innovation typically pay the price down the road when they realize they were wrong. Yeah. And hopping on a little bit earlier now, it seems to be the thing that people are doing.
No, I think that's fine. I just think there's going to be an adjustment because right now everybody's buying everything.
Well, we don't even know what it is yet.
We don't know what it is, right? Yeah. But everybody's just buying everything. Everything that's available is selling, right?
In some ways, that's good if you're buying a lot of them, like a lot of different ones.
Right, but how do we know which one's a real value? Which one's going to sustain value over time? So what I'm worried about is there are people that have their entire fortunes in things that they know nothing about.
Right.
They think they know, but no one knows. It's too new. And they've got their entire savings in these things, and they're going to hold on to them, right, because they're always going to go up. And you end up with people like There's people that were holding Dogecoin at 36 cents a share that are a coin that are at 15 cents, right? And they literally had millions of dollars wiped away, right? And they keep saying, "Oh, it's going to come back. It's going to come back," right? Like, you just don't know.
Maybe not.
It might not, right?
Probably will.
And that's the thing. Those are the people I'm worried about. Other people that are taking a fraction of what they have and putting in it makes all the sense in the world because they're hedging their bet.
Yeah.
You don't know that it's going to win, but you don't know that it won't. So you can take a small piece of what you have and put in these things just in case.
Well, I was hoping to talk to you guys. I got a bunch of Dogecoin and NFTs in my bag.
I've got Doge. I don't have any NFTs yet, but I've got
I'll give you one.
quite a few crypto.
I'll give you one of mine.
I appreciate it.
I was reading something too. They were talking about it's the same thing with high end art.
Yeah.
There were people that make a mint just moving high end art.
Oh,
buying
yeah.
and selling it, and look at it for a little while and then sell it. And
Yeah.
Well, pretty soon you'll be able to have, like, you'll be able to buy NFTs and put them in your house or in your studio or whatever. And then when someone comes in, they'll have AR glasses, and they put the glasses on and see them all. Or you can look at them with your phone or whatever. But these are all disruptive technologies too. So as technology become it's exponential. So as it exponentially increases in a few years, it'll be so rapidly changing. I think we'll have disruptive technologies every week, every day.
Yeah. I'm thinking about unsubscribing from all of it. Like, literally, the more I've thought about it, the more I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm already see the negative effects in my phone. Like, I'm just like, I don't know. I just feel like I want to check out and enjoy, like, nature itself. I want to enjoy the water, the breeze, the stuff. And, like, I don't know. I feel like this phone is a curse.
I think that's important to do that.
No, I agree.
Because if not, I think, the dystopian future is that we're already in the Matrix, and the Matrix is actually just big, like, giant corporations, and we're all linked to them, and it's just we're all linked to the big corporations.
Yeah.
And, and eventually
If you look
we
around
just
the room,
consume.
you can see everyone's phone right next to them. You know
Yeah,
what I
it's
mean?
right here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to purposely put that thing down and walk away from it.
But it's
See, I set mine face down
it's
me
the
because I don't want to see all the. I've got it's
all
not
distractions.
it'll just distract all day.
Yeah, and yours goes off quite often.
all
So
the
you're
time.
thinking about. Do you think you're capable of being without your phone?
I've got to put more systems in place so that everything can operate. But yeah, I think that's the eventual goal. Is just I don't know, man. I don't know that I want to put glasses on or have it. I just don't know.
You
that I
want
want
a
to deal
chip
with
in your
all-
head?
Yeah, I don't want to deal with all that. And if I do, I don't know. But we'll decide that later on. Like right now, I don't want to be the guinea pig that's figuring it out right this
Yeah,
second.
for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Are you if you could have things the way you could, would you be more involved with the phone, less involved?
I would probably on less involved. I mean, there's plenty of times in my life where I didn't even have a phone or cable or anything, and so not being able to check myself away from my computer or away from my phone, it comes a lot easier at times.
Yeah,
you know? But it's a force. I have to force myself to just say no.
In the real issue that I found, I took a couple years off of everything. Like I had the oldest phone I could possibly have. I shut it off constantly. I lived in a vehicle. I was like, fuck everything. I didn't go on the internet. I had no social media. And the problem is when you go back, I took 2.5, 3 years off. I was 10 years behind.
Yeah.
And I'm still struggling to catch up. And so I would love to.
Yeah.
I'm fighting to get away from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want the computers and the phones.
I don't think I can get away from it in a short term, but I think long term, like that's a personal. Like the more I think about it, the more I'm like,
that's the goal you're starting with in mind?
yeah, because I feel like what most people. So if I'm going to use it, I want to use it as a tool.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be the consumer.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
Right. So maybe I'm saying it wrong. Like I think
that's exactly right.
the way I'm using it right now, I use it as a tool a lot. All those notifications are actually businesses, right? So it's a valuable tool.
Yeah.
The ones that I've turned off all social media. I've had them off for a while. I've got every notification thing on my phone actually in the last few weeks is now off except for the chat groups that we use for our businesses.
Well, see, I look at technology as an extension of us. Like this is an actual extension of your mind, and it's a link to everybody else's mind. So I think, in a lot of ways, it's very important because it gives us access to unlimited information.
Communication.
It enhances. It should enhance empathy with each of us because we're so connected. But like he said, if you're just a consumer all the time on it, it is consuming you.
Yeah.
And that's the
You
problem.
end up being the product.
It's very convenient. I love to order things quickly off of it. It makes my processes much faster. But also it can be a time warp too. Like you can get sucked into it and it can consume your time. And that's when it's a problem.
And it's getting better and better at keeping you.
That TikTok algorithm got me a few times.
You just have to be aware. Yeah.
It's just instantaneous news and instantaneous information now, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of times is you have to be able to take a chance to dissect that information. Before, back in the day when we had newspapers and everything, you could read about something and you weren't going to get it something changing or everybody talking about it in 15-minute sound bites every single 15 minutes. You were able to dissect that information, think about it, and then make your own conscious decision about the information.
We have to find good sources, too. Learn how to decipher the information. Well, hey, guys, I got a heart out. I'll see you a little bit later.
Definitely.
And I'll let you I'll start it, and you can finish it.
Hey, fair enough. That's how we do it around here.
Dude, it's awesome having you on, man. And we'll have you back on again, too.
All right, thank you for having me. It's been a while.
Yeah, for sure, man.
How we doing, buddy?
Yeah.
I know breakfast is you're supposed to have the breakfast of champions, but I didn't have breakfast this morning.
Same. Most important meal of the day, they say.
They say a lot.
I think it's the most important meal of the week because I only do it once a week. So I got up early the other day to make myself breakfast, and it was fucking weird.